Ho ho ho, I bring you presents from China, 18,500 deliveries last week. It is now extremely unlikely that we will not have another record quarter in China again. Gary called the results from the week before this latest one monster, so this week was even better. The monster is getting bigger. And here's the Model 3 and Model Y mix. The Model 3 numbers remain relatively low, but extremely consistent compared to before. I take it as good news because if we lower the price of the refresh Model 3, I think the sales would increase even more. Because the refresh certainly makes the Model 3 quite a bit better. We are just a few thousand vehicles away from the all-time record for the quarter. So even though I expect the next week to be significantly weaker, we are definitely going to have a record quarter. I expected a good number this week, but this was certainly better than I expected. I think generally everyone feels the same way. And James actually just increased his forecast back up to 480,000 because of this great number. There is certainly some good news here, but I think some are taking this as extremely good news, which I think is taking it too far. In the latest heat map climate poll, 35% of future EV buyers said Elon Musk had actually made them more likely to purchase a Tesla, up from 31% in February. People who said Elon Musk's behavior made them less likely to pick a Tesla, 36% in February and 27% in November. But the heat map climate poll only had 1,000 people. So how good is this poll really? Well, actually, it possibly could be fairly accurate. They said that their sampling error is plus or minus 3.1 percentage points, and that they interviewed people in all of 50 states and Washington, D.C. And the main reason why I think there's some good insight here for us is because this is the second time they have done this poll, so if you keep the polling methodology and processes exactly the same, if you have different results, then it actually means that something has changed as opposed to, the polling methodology or the way they conduct the poll is just simply different, which could present very different results without anything actually having changed. But one problem with this poll is that it was done between November 6th and 13th, which means that it did not include that latest anti-Semitic controversy about Elon Musk and the advertisers pulling out from X and the media slamming Elon non-stop for multiple days and a few weeks really. The media also went after Elon reinstated Alex Jones, so that's also not taken into consideration here. Heatmap found that some 39% of Democrats and left-leaning independents said Musk has made them less likely to look at a Tesla, a small drop from 44% who said the same in February. Only 17% of Republicans and right-leaning independents said the same, and I'm wondering how many more of them are actually now more likely to buy a Tesla. I'm sure that number is certainly significant. And of all respondents surveyed, a plurality, 46%, said Musk ultimately has no impact. Farzad is making fun of those people that think that there has been some brand damage done to Tesla's brand. There's still a chance for the brand damage crowd to come forward and admit they were wrong. I promise I will not judge. But this year is based on a lot more data, 227,000 responses. And I would trust this data a lot more than that small survey of 1,000 people. And you can clearly see that there are now quite a few more people that have unfavorable opinions of Tesla cars. How much do you like Tesla cars? More people do not like Tesla cars compared to a few years ago. And you can clearly see the change around when Elon decided to purchase Twitter. To some degree, though, this is cyclical and it's expected and it's somewhat predictable even, that Elon is going to do something that is going to upset many people, and for some period of time, these people will have a negative opinion of him. And if you look at the past, the public's opinion often bounced back to being more neutral, but this time maybe it's different because, I mean, Elon is seriously getting into politics and he actually has power this time. And this is a slightly newer version of that. It goes until October 23, and you can see that the unfavorable opinion is not really going down this time. It's just sticking there, well above 20%. I do not mind more people being unfavorable as long as we have more people viewing Tesla cars favorably. However, if you look at the data here, you can see that the people that view Tesla cars favorably, that number actually went down. But I am not really all that worried about that, because think about this. If you are in a relationship, how quickly can you separate? How easy is it to upset someone? It's like that. But how long does it take to get married? If you go up to someone and you just say, hey, let's get married, they're going to look at you like you lost your mind. It takes, depending on the case, it takes at least a few months and possibly maybe a year or two at least. And I actually recently spoke to someone who is more on the right politically, and he was skeptical about Elon earlier, but I see that his skepticism over time is going down because he sees that, oh yeah, Elon is actually sticking to what he says. He's not just flip-flopping every month. And James has a really good take about this new survey that's in favor of Elon, and I agree with everything pretty much 100% here. There have been a few surveys like this, most of them unfavorable to Elon since the Twitter acquisition, and this survey, like others, has some limitations, namely that this is a general population survey and not a survey of market participants, which would be more specific to car buyers. However, it is interesting to note that hopefully the general population is starting to become desensitized to what was an otherwise big change in Elon's online persona and use of Twitter. I hypothesized that there will come a point of diminishing negative returns from Elon's more controversial political takes and posts, where most people in the general public, even liberals, after being exposed to his opinions over a long period of time, become less affected and interested in Elon's posts and just start to sort of hand wave it off as Elon being Elon. All news type of thing. I think we may be at this point now as the Twitter takeover is now a year behind us. Do I think Tesla suffered in 2023 as a result of this? I don't think there is any doubt, and I agree with that for sure 100%. But will it ultimately matter in the intermediate long term? I am increasingly thinking it will not. And this survey also points in that general direction. And even Farzad says 100% agreed with your conclusion. As a Tesla stock investor, I don't really think it benefits me when Elon talks about politics, but do I respect Elon more for doing it, Ashley? Oh yes, absolutely. To me, there are some things, and there are quite a few of them, that are much more important than just money. Calling out hypocrisies and obvious lies is one of them, for example. So if Elon talking about politics and calling some people out when they actually deserve it, if that reduces my Tesla stock returns in the end by, let's say, 20%, I'm okay with that. Would I really be upset about, instead of 10xing my money, just 8xing my money? I would not be upset at all. And if anything, if Elon completely stopped doing this permanently, being Elon, I would be a bit concerned, actually. I think Elon having enemies translates into more drive, into proving these enemies wrong, and I think that makes Elon more motivated and overall more effective, and I think some of that also translates into driving the Tesla team a bit more effectively, maybe being a bit more harsh with the team when needed. There's nothing else quite like having an enemy that will motivate you and push you to work harder and smarter. And Elon calls out hypocrisies. I mean, when you say, oh, I'm pro climate change, and then you bash Elon Musk or Tesla, I mean, this just makes zero sense. So as an investor, I don't like it when Elon says something, but as a human being, I say, go Elon, go get them. Piper Sandler's Alexander Potter expects that Tesla will deliver 507,000 vehicles in Q4, which sounds a bit optimistic to me. And actually, he himself admits that this is on the high end of the believable range. Troy, for example, is only at 477,000, but I expect him to increase his estimate by a little bit because of the good numbers from China. Piper Sandler also noted that it is optimistic about the company's margins and that the margins in Q4 are going to be higher than in Q3. And at first, that sort of doesn't make sense because didn't Tesla reduce prices a little bit? I'm talking about inventory discounts. For example, in Germany, Tesla lost an EV subsidy, but it replaced it with a discount coming directly from Tesla. So that certainly hurts the margins. But also, if you remember, Tesla increased the prices by a little bit in China. And perhaps most importantly, if you look at China, Tesla is selling so many more Model Ys than Model 3s, which also is a tailwind for Tesla's profitability compared to previous quarters. So while Piper Sandler is optimistic, I think there is a reason for them to actually be optimistic. Morgan Stanley has a new Tesla stock note. Here are some key highlights. Many investors still debate the merits of Tesla as more than an auto company. In our opinion, Tesla is definitely an auto company. It is also an AI company, think and not or. Morgan Stanley is actually making a lot of sense here. Tesla's AI Day will be an important catalyst to introduce and develop new adjacencies for Tesla's technologies. Optimus addresses the $30 trillion global labor market and runs on the same software architecture as FSD. In other words, if you include FSD in your Tesla model, it is very likely that you are not including all of the upside from the bot that you probably should include in your model. Because if FSD works, then the Tesla bot will also certainly work to some extent. Then they talk about Dojo, the same forces that have driven AWS to reach 70% of Amazon's total earnings can work at Tesla. In our view, opening up new addressable markets that extend well beyond selling vehicles at a fixed price. The catalyst? Dojo, Tesla's custom supercomputing effort in the works for the past 5 years. Morgan Stanley seems to be really convinced about Dojo. I'm a bit less optimistic about Dojo because Elon himself said earlier that it's a long shot, but it's still worth pursuing. And we pretty much know that Tesla is throwing everything it has at full self-driving, but is Tesla really throwing everything it got at Dojo as well? I'm not so convinced about that. It's more like a side project for Tesla, but it's a side project that could actually turn into a huge business, so we should still pursue it. As traditional OEMs pull back on their in-house vertically integrated EV plans, we believe Tesla is in a position to add even greater value to industry rivals in areas such as software, FSD, battery, hardware, operating system, 48-volt electric architecture, and other areas. Now this one is pretty interesting. SpaceX and Starlink halo effect. From our discussions with investors about Tesla, the subject of SpaceX and especially Starlink are seen as important components within the Muskonomy and ones that are potentially interrelated with Tesla itself. SpaceX recently launched a huge rocket to certainly some degree that has been a huge success. And Morgan Stanley thinks that helps Tesla too. I agree to some extent, certainly. In our opinion, Tesla is far more than an auto company. Of our $380 price target, our valuation of the core auto business is just $86 per share. I think that number should really be higher, but their delivery expectations in 2030 are really low, leaving 77% of our target derived by network services, mobility, third-party battery, FSD licensing, energy, and insurance. From 2023, Morgan Stanley is forecasting that Tesla's earnings will grow at a 27% compounded annual growth rate through 2030. While it's important to factor in near-term real-time headwinds into 2024, we believe it is also important and reasonable to consider the long-term potential of the products and services being commercialized by the company. This actually makes sense now. They should actually look at everything that Tesla is going to do and include everything without being extremely overly conservative, because Morgan Stanley's Tesla stock record, well, it's a bit hilarious. The timing almost could not be worse. I mean, Morgan Stanley said to hold while you should have been buying as much as you could. They said sell while you should still have been buying as much as you could, and they said buy when, I see why maybe possibly you may not have wanted to buy as much as you possibly could have. But hey, look, overall, it still has worked out for Morgan Stanley. Their success rate is about 56% with a return that's above 0%. But you are better off listening to Alexander Potter, who has been pretty much always right about Tesla stock, with his returns averaging 107% per Tesla stock rating. According to BCG, Tesla is the second most innovative company in the world now, but SpaceX is only number 13. I don't think that makes sense. And if Apple is so innovative, where is the Apple car? Source says Tesla's 2 million car over-the-air software recall has already been brought up at 2 Christmas parties, and none of these people knew that it was an over-the-air update. I am pretty sure that has some effect on Tesla sales, because I know one person who I am not exactly very close with, but we talk from time to time, and she ended up buying a different vehicle than a Tesla because she saw so many Tesla recalls. It's a personal anecdote, but if that was not the case, there's a good chance she would have actually at least tried a Tesla vehicle, which means then maybe she would have ended up buying a Tesla. Is there a way for Tesla to maybe change the law somehow so that if it is a recall that has been solved with the software update, it has to say that in the headline that it is a software update that does not require the vehicle to be taken into a dealership? But that would go against free speech, so forget about it. Or is it possible to at least change that it will no longer be called a recall? So instead of the government basically issuing a recall, it would issue a request to update the vehicle's software. And then put that in the headline. I don't think anyone would be concerned about that then. I mean, when you think about a recall, this is what you think about. This just happened, by the way. Porsche Taycan recalled over high voltage battery fire concerns, faulty charging cables. And very roughly about 45,000 of these vehicles are affected. So this is not, nothing to see here, but the media, of course, will not cover it. Sawyer also said that no one at the Christmas party knew about the Honda's 2 million vehicle recall, and this one is a somewhat serious recall. Your car could just stall, and that's 2 million vehicles just within the US, if I'm understanding that correctly, making it 4.5 million cars internationally. And now check out these Cybertruck reactions.
Hi.
We're getting it too.
Oh, congrats.
It looks awesome.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks. Apparently the Cybertruck is awesome at picking up chicks. I totally could have got her number if I wasn't married. The thumbs up and looks you get in this thing, I might as well be driving a Bugatti.
Wow, even that lady's looking. That's crazy.
What?
All the way in the carpool lane, people are looking at this car.
I like how the Cybertruck lights turn off when you lock the vehicle. Looks pretty cool to me. Russia has a new electric car that's totally going to destroy Tesla. Is that a real story, or is Sawyer trolling us? Oh, Sawyer turns out is not trolling us at all. Even Yahoo News has this story published. However, I think the article is sarcastic. Okay, so this is not a serious article. Tesla to reportedly adopt TSMC's 3nm chips in 2024 for its FSD chip, according to local Chinese media. N3P aims to deliver a 5% improvement in performance, a 5 to 10% reduction in power consumption, and a 1.04 times increase in chip density. Not a huge improvement, but we'll take it. Certainly, it's nice to see these little improvements. It doesn't quite seem to me that it's going to be hardware 5 because the improvement is so small, but these small improvements do add up over time. Maybe we can call it hardware 4.1, not hardware 5. A Tesla competitor in China today is having a great day. The stock is up 9%. NIO unveiled a very expensive car, so I'm not really concerned about that at all. But also, NIO debuted its first ever intelligent driving chip. I'm not worried about that because NIO barely has any cars on the roads compared to Tesla. And to solve full self-driving, you need lots of data. And to generate lots of data, you need lots of cars on the roads. There are so many EV companies in China. Here's another one. This vehicle is going to cost you $83,000. Deliveries start in a few months. In the US, about 7,000 auto dealers signed up to offer new on-the-spot tax credits. That's about 40% of all of the US dealers, and the number I expect is going to grow, of course. So that should help overall with EV adoption in the US. Some of my friends that have never had an EV but are interested in EV sometimes ask me about how about an EV catching on fire. So what I'm doing is I'm bookmarking every single gas-powered vehicle fire I can find, and then I will show about 100 of them to them at one point, all at once. The stats say that a Tesla vehicle is 10 times less likely basically to catch on fire. So I will show them 10 gas-powered vehicle fires for every one Tesla fire. And then I will see what they say. And I am starting a new channel, Wow with Matt. One reason why is because I observed if you are perceived more as an entertainer, then you are a lot less likely to be canceled. And I want to dive into some controversial topics later on. So if this channel becomes bigger, where I just react to some funny videos and then comment and then occasionally cover something controversial as well, then I think that puts me in a better position to later on cover very controversial topics. To subscribe, simply click on the link below in the description of this video. Later this week, I will upload at least 2 Patreon videos. If you haven't seen this one from earlier, my long-term plans, watch it, and I will see you in the next video. Like and subscribe if you haven't yet.